Hello, I'm back with part two here. We had a little bit of an interruption. Had to change the hat because never know who's going to be there whenever you open the door. Just insane with whatever it is out there for it. Wanting to be as honest with you as humanly possible. Let's see here. We're on the satanic ritual killings and everything else that was here as part of things that come around and happen. Been in the papers. I think one of them made national news because it was a international family. Basically, this looks like the Masonic symbols that went over when they did the conspiracy of making Washington D.C. It's just turned upside down, and the fact they used the goat and the pentagram was basically they had the true hidden knowledge and were the true people of knowledge in Spain and everything else and all of this. Now, um, you can go on that this is really stupid or something else. It's got a lot more merit to it than you would think of, mostly because of the way Mussolini's decision room, which is set up with basically him in the center of it, had moving, shifting parts and circles that went around that were a complex situation. And in order to get to him, you had to basically come forward with each one of your groups. And it showed your own personal situation that you were not evolved enough as a person to actually be close to him in his inner circle. Only those that could make it through this. And they go on about how it's like electrical fields and other stuff. And basically just a little bit of probably grandiose empirical insanity. But I mean, there's been certain like little kid games that show up that you have to step on this little circle that goes around twice, and you step off, and you step on the other part, and it takes you around, and then you have to step off on things. And now we make things like Ninja Assassin for it, or American Ninja. I mean, it's kind of interesting, and everything else, and basically you can go out there and push the other person off of their stuff into whatever. Um, as it is, yeah, of course, they're just gone when they fall off. It's not like there's water. Anyway, as it is going along with the satanic killings and other things along those situations, these do come in as something that will be probably coming up more and more associated with Civil War situations. And then there will be an extreme Spanish flare. There has to be something that takes out a bunch of old Spanish, since the Spanish pretty much settled from Carolina southward. They just weren't able to hold it as a colony. Florida and the French were the Louisiana Purchase, but there was also a lot of Spanish that came along through there. Same with up in the Illinois and the backside of Detroit state, Michigan. Now, in looking at everything else going through, basically California is going to leave, Texas is going to leave, Arizona, and all the mountain states like Montana and other stuff that's mountains for Spanish. Well, Spanish for mountains. Looking at it, I've been hit enough with the reverse program for reverse talk back and forth. So, really and truly, please stop. Looking at it was how it's Donald Trump's fault and everything else with it. This is just the switching of the guard between that which is the Mother Church, ran by Catholicism. Protestantry will say that it doesn't have anything to do with it, but inevitably, eventually, it will come back around to them. And then will be unified because nothing of the New World is allowed to be not under a colonial power. Therefore, it can spend about 1,000 years under colonization to see if it really can choose Roman tribalism. Then, moving on from this and everything else, Haitians. We all know President Trump. Here's where it's President Trump. And I'm telling you, he told you himself and was honest. I'm not racist. You all are. And there was a quote that he said that in the very first part of his administration. I'm sure it's swept under the rug, just like how they did this one killing of all the leaders of the Taliban. And they went in there and they proved that they were all Roman principalities and that they weren't really part of anything in their World War II Mussolini people. They were just kind of doing lip service to people. Okay, this group then just disappeared. But here's Donald Trump. Haitians. We don't need any more Haitians here in America. We need Americans back here. We don't need to be opening up things for refugees. We don't need any more Haitians. Incredibly racist? Or is he a French operative trying to bring in as many French people over as humanly possible? Haiti being French, Dominican Republic being a more Spanish side of the island. He said he wasn't racist. Naturally, President Trump's out. There's a lot of people being brought over that are fairly well off Haitians coming here for the migrant seasonal work. I'll be honest, it seems like more French people from French colonies, French Guiana, or anywhere else come here for not the spring labor, but the Christmas time labor. I'm just telling you, there's things that are set up. These people are very well off. They went on about how they have cell phones, they're texting family members and people and everything else. When they get back into Haiti, they're going to distribute almost all of this, all the way to French Guiana that borders Brazil and South America, almost to the equator. This will go across over to Africa, which is really only about 600 miles to 1,000 miles. The length of Florida. It's shorter than if you took the highway from the Florida Keys all the way up and went across the Panhandle and wanted to go see Alabama's border with it. This will go back to France. France's ambassador has been removed from the USA because we're supposedly going to be going to war with France in French Polynesia, that they've basically kept a type of control over in the area, and we're going to lose Alaska and Hawaii because France is just going to take it. I've already listened to this from one or two people in the Hart family that owned the Hart family on signing the Declaration of Independence as slaves. They actually were able to find them because they were scattered out to the winds and joined up with their Native American tribe. One of the biggest proof out there, supposedly they faked like 20 or 30 of their deaths because, like, a couple of hundred of them lived here and they were all just like assassinated because of Cold War shit. Everybody just came here to have a free-for-all because they lived so much around here. Most prevalent group of people that were signers of Declaration of Independence lineage that lived here. Anyway, looking at everything, going from there, welcome to insanity. Donald Trump is basically old World War II situation. He has connections to Andersonville. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. That's Civil War. Sorry. The Civil War. He has connections to Andersonville. Some other people have researched it back in the 80s. And it's like, you need to listen to this guy over here. Whenever the Hollywood people were around. And I mean, he was loud and angry and everything else. And he went on about Vicksburg. And it was like, I knew some stuff about Vicksburg. And it's like, I tried putting them over there with you. And apparently it's like incredibly damning for him. But then that has to mean that, he recognizes he's not a white person. And he's like one of the French group that would be left alone to see if they really are Roman. Or else if they're going to be like gotten rid of in some sort of like brown supremacy. Only the Roman Latins have it. Which there's this other guy out west Knoxville that did a whole bunch of stuff, and one day I might just try and do something and be like, I'm going to completely change everybody's name, and I'll call them Johnny Alasia. No, that's too much. Johnny, here's a thing over here. Catch ass. Kachaska. Yeah, that sounds good. Johnny Kachaska. Everybody will be that, and the girls will be Joan Kachaska. And just see if I can do it. Send it to the movie theaters, companies, and be like, let's see if they can make a new slasher film out of it, and if he'll flinch in it. It just come forth and have to confess himself for like murder and shit, or rape and other stuff. But, never really happened here because all the records were burned so quickly. Anyway, just looking at it, with everything, back to the border and stuff with like Donald Trump. The French white came over, and the French black came over, and therefore those black people were here through fault of their own, and were here under the old form of racism, which was to separate all the America from its family and its unity or nationalism. I know we can't say, it's nation. In looking at it, it's very interesting off of it, and how much it pushes, Native American supremacy, which the Mussolini family here is always like, you were a racist supremacist before we were here. And we got in power. But anyway, saying that so much of like the Haitian migrants were 20% French black people, because they're the very well off ones and everything else. And they're always interloping and watching after the slaves and everything else, or else political dissidents that they can motivate along through there. And basically slavery in the kingdom right after George Washington's sixth cousin was beheaded, and we expelled the Marquis de Lafayette. Slavery was for the person, and they would do sacred lots, basically. And this is where things get really tricky, but let's try and do it. A conscript is still a slave in France under this new royal language. A conscript is the one that's like the privileged, because he's not a conscript, he's the conscript. So he's responsible for everything. The slaves are the ones that are at the bottom that have to come along with, but they are not slaves. It's like how the Republicans are now under the Democrats. There's another group that's considered the forgotten, basically red over there. And if you're with one group, you're considered orange, and if you're with another one, you're considered brown. And this is an old French language that, granted, wasn't around that long, and it's considered the third estate kingship that Bill Clinton legalized in the USA. They were one of the worst people out there. They made the system for on the numbers burned into people's arms, and the system for killing off people in the French populace, so that there can never be a Jewish king or a native king in any way, one family member or whatever, on the throne in France. There can never be one single person out there. They burned all these numbers into people, made the systematic reasons for pulling anyone out. They were basically responsible for all the doctors in the lab coats, the intelligent tests, everything else, in order to pull people off and weaken them in the Holocaust and get rid of the cream first and leave whatever is the slag or whatever's at the bottom. As it is, granted, whenever they are shipping gold back and forth, that's illegal. They call it slag or scrap or slough. That's basically everything I can say on the border that's there. Biden bringing people in that are considered to be as Spanish as possible, basically further nativing Latin America. And there's been a lot of people that I know that are natives that have rejected their citizenship, which they say they can't in this country, have gone across, have had family members that live across on the other side, and then other people have been accused, and I would say several of them have gone over there, massacred whole towns of different people, and came and sought asylum somehow in the USA because of when we had non extradition in Mexico with the USA. And this will further make a central area. And a lot of people are like, nowadays, they've chosen their reservation, Bolivia, or they're going to be where we go for constant war games and stuff in Mexico, which I do know one other thing that I'm planning on doing here, sitting in Library of Congress and everything else, for actual certification rather than, no offense, YouTube, thank you for giving me my instant copyright or whatever it is, but I know that you use it for whatever it is for situations for your own benefit and profit and lobbying. I'm sure that will knock this one down. There's where the border is as I see it with everything. And basically we have right now Spanish that do have a black version of themselves in their kingdoms, a very dark copper version, and yes, a very white version over there. And there's 7 kingdoms, so let's just not say that there's that many colors. And France has a 3-color system to a 4-color system and has people in the middle that are considered breeds. And hopefully one day one of them will be able to go back to Rome, which will never happen because Romans are just Romans and you always were. And that came around all the way from back when, before Julius Caesar, for reference points. Now, looking at the border, do I think that they're just playing legal tiddlywinks and news media is really looking at whatever they can do for ratings? Because they need money. Me, I can't even get a view. So I guess I can be more honest. Looking at everything here with it, yeah, that's what that is. Moving on to one other section here, I'm just going to say it is jockeying for the Civil War, and the Pope and all the emperors and the primitive church Jesus are supporting basically the Spanish. And hopefully that there'll be some sort of war or takeover because France, since it's reunified with its Andorran Principality, does not have a legal right by Vatican City to have a port in the Mediterranean. And Monaco is supposed to be reabsorbed into Italy since it's held out against Mussolini for so long. And the colonic rebels want to take over Spain. There's a civil war brewing in France. It's even made its way onto YouTube. So with this, where things could go to is over in the Western Mediterranean. So there's a lot of stuff that could be brewing there for a war. You can say that you can't cite your sources. I can cite the sources. It's not going to come through. I can cite where I was at. I can cite with going, I noticed one person was putting things through this house and through some base they have that's an underground bunker since so many people made them here in the Cold War. They're all over the place. They sell them off to different people and then they just drill in a new entrance and plug up the old entrance from left to right or up or down the hill. Therefore, they can always run and never have to use a ladder. I mean, it's just the way the world works here. But then moving right along over here, how do I do this next hard part? see here something. Uh, neighbors arguing. We might be able to hear something. Moving along to where another thing for everything else and how I've gone on that the priests of World War II and Mussolini are Japanese. And, now and then they try to bring in somebody who's Spanish in a way for establishing fertility or something, and bringing in someone from Africa for extreme science and everything. Now, moving on with this right here, I will tell you openly that everybody loves saying that somehow I'm related to these people, and it's the Taliban church. And I'm going, yeah, you can take a look at them and tell that I'm really not. And I can tell you exactly who they are, because this guy's been on a quest to be with my family and to have sex with me and everything else, and has tons of, illegitimate children from him and his grandfather. And it's like they want to marry into my family so they can take the lineage. And when they get full religious rights as Japanese people again, they can make a beheading sacrifice of these people, like they did over in Japan in the Holocaust. And I've watched him where he's killed people, and these same people from there have gone out and prayed over the areas where they've killed people, made them one-armed swordsmen and stuff. And I'm going, my grandfather's about 6'3". His father is 6'4", and I've seen him in his SS uniform. He was a specialized trained person in Japan and in Germany, and they all claim in some way lineage to Rome, and they'll be welcome back for their hard works. And if you want to make some inbred jokes, it's like, well, yeah, I can take a look at one or two of these girls that come over, and they have this, I'll be honest, this weird, crazy ritual that they're supposed to be around anybody and try and get themselves turned on as much as possible until they accept Christ. Then they're supposed to reject it and be like they could never have sex or anything. His granddad went over there and did it all the time with the people over there in that area, and said that there would be great things even coming from the greatness of space and the deep depthness of the ground to even bring them back over and upgrade them all the time. When the things came out of the sky and they would be thrown into these little whatever it is, and they'd be given all this stuff to make sure they stayed young, make sure that they were genetically upgraded and everything. And they're the guys that, took over the different places and said we couldn't be there. And I told them, one of them, I was like, you might not want to be over here because you have an insulin pump. And, a lot of people have to catch the soccer ball right there, so it'd rip your insulin pump out. So I've been told that I've threatened them all my life for everything else. Anyway, their kids went out there and then had relations again. And they go, this has to be where they all live at and everything else. And the son got all of them prego. So in a way, a guy who's a quarter Japanese and an eighth Japanese went out there and had sex with their brothers and sisters and made their brothers and sisters. So then he went to Western Heights and looked for anybody with the frizzy red hair. It's kind of like Albert Einstein. And had sex with all of them. But there was this one other family that I know, there's the Snowdens out there with it. And they just have lighter frizzy red hair. And he goes, don't you see anybody who's related to you yet? Don't these people look familiar? We know you've lived there for several hundred years. And it's like, oh wow, the Snowdens were left here and used to live here or something else and went and fought for Mussolini in World War II, which is what they all said to me whenever any of them came in, including Edward, over to Hall's Walmart 1319. But, it's just a prisoner exchange and trying to see how they're going to manipulate stuff for whatever it is and try to establish their one world government underneath Rome, however it works. Because none of them are really fighting with each other because they're all Romans. But, looking at it and how they have to maintain genetic purity and make sure that they're even purified, more towards the true winning situation and everything. Um, you know, I don't really care. I mean, I look at this and I just go, it's completely ridiculous and everything about how they're all gangbangers and they're all just there and they pray over anywhere that their family killed somebody and it may be one of the crusaders that is resurrected in like some DNA cloning thing and everything else. You know, you can take a vial of blood and make a person back from it or a single genetic thing like in Fifth Element. And the last thing I heard from them, like 5 or 6 years before Fifth Element came out, so I guess it's writers and being put up over in there, was that they actually did some things or had something to do with it, contributed something to it. So it's like it's their big movie that they had something to do with for their church and everything, since they all work in a conglomerate. But I just look at it and go, you've never been around these people, have you? It's absolutely ridiculous. Uh, I'm sure everything's my fault, and since I'm working with all of them and they all have to work in a family unit situation, I'm considered part of their family or an in law or something else. So, whatever it is with it, all of it. Also, they also claim Roland from there as in laws or else lineage, as well as that which is Page from Oklahoma. So, whatever it is, they're totally covered. And just to say, I want to get rid of my whatever it is here. I'm just going to end it right here with that and be like, need to watch out whoever you have sex with. Never know what the plot is against your family and how they'll just have one person that they can behead later and cut the head off of and call the sacrificial holy ritual because you descend from someone out there. And it's like, don't worry, at the end of the day, you've read Genesis, Adam and Eve, so we can. Anyway, hopefully you'll have a great time. They don't refer to Mr. SS and his pastor's son here that I've been around off and on for, God, all my life. And it's like, you can only mention whenever you were a legal member of their church because there's separation of church and state. And it can only be brought up in Vatican City where all churches and all religions come from. It's like this. I've listened to the white supremacy, the like light brown supremacy or whatever it is, and the mixed supremacy, a perfect mixture. I've listened to the black supremacy of I'm black, I'm in the South. You have to listen to whatever I say. Emmett Till, Medgar Evers. Don't forget the other two, or 3 or 80 million, whatever it is. Numbers. Get me an Oriental. Thank you, thank you. Okay, pure brown Mexican, whatever the heck it is, I need that supremacy and the mosque person. Therefore, it's like there's two, okay, that have no connection to anybody or anything. And we can throw in, they say that like all the Orientals now not yellow, it's brown or something else. One brown Oriental, therefore it's like three. Okay, moving on. Fake Native Americans and real Native Americans. Since they can tell that under DNA now with all the Romans and have been since there was a 34 DNA test back in the Vietnam that they used in the military and everything else. And it's like you have to have a 214 DNA test to see if you're inbred and stuff. It's like, no, it's just a 64. So, actually, I think it's 48 actually to see if you're inbred or anything else like that. And that's for like generations. But, anyway, with everything all being said, please. Nah, I'm not going to go there. I mean, it's just ridiculous with it. I mean, I don't need a job. I got $700 coming from a family member, and I got a lot of televisions I need to sell. One, maybe two. And I'll be able to keep the computer and sell the other junk. And I'll be out of debt, and I have a 401k that covers everything. And it's going up through October, and I'm probably going to sell in November. Or else look at it as the last big quarter for everything, since the inflation will bump up all the prices. And then we can start getting everything in the real estate when it all collapses. Anyway, and slumlords take over nationwide because everybody needs to feel New York's pain from the 60s and 70s. And we'll have fentanyl instead of heroin. Anyway, love y'all to death. See ya. Like and subscribe. I know no one will see this, and I'm on a private server. Tally ho. Colin Dawson, the Political Minute.